2, Faisal Chowdhury.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to a recent report by NUS Scotland, which states that more than a fifth of international students in Scotland have experienced homelessness during their studies.
Minister Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, Scotland welcomes international students from all over the world. They are an important part of our student community. This report raises significant issues which I know universities will take seriously as they seek to ensure they have robust plans in place to assist in finding accommodation.
Faisal Chowdhury.
Thank you. Congratulations, Minister, on your new position. This week, it is International Student Week. Yet, we are still seeing thousands of students across Scotland struggle through this housing crisis without help from the Scottish Government. Last week, in my members' business debate, I addressed the huge number of houses that are mould-infested and dangerous. Landlords and letting agents are refusing to deal with the issue of damp and mould, and once again, it is students who suffer as they cannot afford to live anywhere else. Can the Minister advise what is being done to ensure landlords and letting agents are held accountable for the structural repairs and damp control in privately rented accommodation?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, this is thank Faisal Chowdhury for his kind words. This is a really important issue. I want to address it. Let me take a moment, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government, as members know, has no direct role in the provision of student residential accommodation, but we are determined to improve accessibility, affordability and standards in the purpose-built student accommodation which we can influence. So our view is that students should not be disadvantaged in the housing market. The review that's underway in that particular aspect has looked at key issues such as I say, accessibility, affordability and standards. The expert group has involved the National Union of Students, and I look forward to receiving the recommendations on the group soon. And in the context of the wider issue that he highlights in the private sector, in the course of the next few weeks, months, I will be speaking to ministerial colleagues about what more we could do in that space.
Faisal Chowdhury.
I thank the Minister for the answer. The study by NUS Scotland also found that 29% of international students have considered leaving their course because of the financial difficulties, and a shocking 49% have skipped meals due to their financial circumstance. In January this year, I hosted a student housing roundtable in the Parliament. Many international students told me they faced clear racism from private landlords when looking for affordable housing. If they also cannot secure a UK-based grantor, then purpose-built student accommodation is the only option for many of them. These often have difficulties, term lengths, and are far too expensive for most students to afford. Will the Minister agree to meet with me to discuss the housing situation of international students in Scotland? Minister.
President Officer, I'll be absolutely delighted to meet with the member on that issue. And let me be absolutely clear. If there is a sense that there is any kind of racism at play in this, that's completely unacceptable. So I'd be more than happy to meet the member and discuss this further.
Pam Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would also like to wish the Minister in his new role, as this is my first opportunity. Representatives of the Indian student community have highlighted that a shortage of accommodation is a serious issue for international students in Scotland. Some students have reported being advised to return to India for a whole semester if they were unable to secure accommodation. Others have had to sleep in their friends' hallways until they find accommodation of their own. Can I ask the Minister, what is the Scottish Government doing to ensure this issue does not make Scotland a less attractive destination for international students?
Minister.
Again, thank Pam Gossel for her kind words. If there is an issue specific to Indian students, I'm happy to discuss that with her. What I would say beyond what I've already said is that over the next few weeks and months, you can imagine I'm quite popular with student principals at the moment, wanting meetings. If members are identifying particular hot spots where there are issues, I'll be more than happy to discuss that on the agenda of the meetings I have with the principals in those universities. But I'll be more than happy to discuss it further with Pam Gossel.
Stephanie Callaghan.
I also welcome the Minister to his new role. The findings of this report are deeply concerning, and I appreciate that the Scottish Government is carrying out a review of the provision of the purpose-built student accommodation sector to inform a student accommodation strategy for Scotland. Can the Minister provide some detail on the scope of this review? And does he agree with me that the responsibility here does lie with universities as private institutions who have a duty regarding the well-being of their students?
Minister.
Yes, it does primarily lie with universities, but I have to say I had a meeting last week with students from multiple universities in the Edinburgh area, and I was extremely encouraged to hear about the emphasis that the university is concerned place on the well-being of students. I think they do some good work in that area. With regard to the review, it was a fairly wide-ranging scope. I'm looking forward, I'm awaiting the recommendations of the group, and we'll consider those carefully, because what we want to do is to provide a response that sets out strategic priorities for student accommodation that's informed by the challenges that the students in question are meeting.
Willie Rennie.
I don't think the Minister really understands the severity of the problem. We've got more international students than ever before, and we've got a housing crisis, particularly for students. So he can't really wash his hands of this. I'm sure he will get involved directly with the universities, but this is a direct responsibility for government to get this balance right, because our international reputation could be damaged if we don't sort out this international student housing crisis. Does he understand that?
Minister.
President Officer, I don't think in any way in any of my answers I've indicated I'm washing my hands of it. I simply stated a fact that primary responsibility for this lies with the individual universities. But as I've laid out, we are doing a piece of work in this space as it stands. And yes, he's right to talk about getting the balance right. And I'm happy to have conversations with Willie Rennie if he has specific issues he wants to raise with me in this space.
Question number 3.